Their service is a part of America's history. Join us as we step into their story.
That's a really good question because I grew up in a family that had no military connections. So I knew nothing about the military, nothing about the Army. I was just a young high school student trying to pass my classes and play sports, which was really what I enjoyed doing the most. And after taking the SAT test, I got a color brochure in the mail from a place called the United States Military Academy at West Point. It looked kind of interesting. It looked like they had a focus on not only academics, but athletics and leadership. It kind of caught my eye. So to make a long story short, I went up on a visit. I had probably put in an application before that, but I went up to visit West Point on a nice, beautiful fall, crisp day, and the Army football team, I think, won the football game that day, and and they got me hook, line, and sinker, and so I ended up graduated from high school in 1981, and ended up that summer in Beast Barracks at West Point, and it turned out to be a wonderful experience. Very challenging and difficult times, but overall enjoyed the experience at West Point, and graduated in 1985 as commissioned as an officer in the Corps of Engineers. I'll be honest, the first calf patch that some of my classmates at the school wore kind of caught my attention, and that big calf patch, and I'm like, let's go to Fort Hood and experience what the calf is all about, and try that for our second assignment. So finished up the Captain's Career Course at Fort Belvoir, and I got assigned into 1st Cavalry Division, 8th Engineer Battalion. It wasn't long before we got swept up into Desert Shield at the time. And I remember picking up the paper, it must have been around the 1st of October of 1990, and seeing that this news about Saddam Hussein had invaded into Kuwait. I wasn't the smartest guy in the world, but I said to my wife, Roberta, I think this might have an impact on our family and on our unit. At the time, I was the battalion S4, that's the supply officer, and on the staff of 8th Engineer Battalion. And I remember we had some pretty serious shortages in our equipment. I don't remember people. I think we were okay on people, but equipment-wise, we had some pretty significant shortages. 2nd Armored Division, which was the other post, the other division that was on post down the street, they had a brigade that was inactivating at the time. Don't remember which brigade it was. But anyways, to make a long story short, we were able to go down and take advantage of a unit that was inactivating, trying to turn in their equipment to fill a lot of our shortages before we deployed. And we were going over to Saudi Arabia to try and defend against Saddam Hussein. And Saddam Hussein was known to have, or at least was thought to have had chemical weapons. So we were kind of preparing for the worst. We anticipated a defense where we would potentially lose lots of soldiers, and we would potentially have to work under chemical weapons. And I remember the pucker factor for our families and for us as we deployed was pretty high. The stress was high. So we spent our days training, and particularly I remember training in mop suits. Again, we thought Saddam Hussein could likely use chemical weapons, and so we were laser focused on training our soldiers so that when and if the call came to go and defend or even to attack back into Kuwait, that we would be ready. And I just remember long days of training. What the division was tasked to do, 1st Cavalry Division, was to make the Iraqis think that we would attack north in a kind of demonstration or a feint. I think our brigade, Blackjack Brigade, was tasked to be the division's main effort in that. And what that really meant was we basically would attack north into the Iraqi defenses so that they would have their attention focused on us, while other things were happening to allow this big move to the west and that kind of the end around. And so what a division or a brigade level demonstration really at the tactical level is combat. And so we executed a series of operations called Berm Busters. So as part of the Iraqi defenses, they had constructed an earthen berm, or maybe the berm was pre-existed on the border, I'm not sure, but on the border between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, it was a large berm, and we believe that there was also minefields and concertina wire and other things that the Iraqis had built there. And so we attacked north as 2nd Brigade on the first of, I think, 3 berm buster operations where we actually went up to the border and attacked the Iraqis until we made contact and had some back and forth fighting, and then we withdrew. And then some period of time later, I don't remember if it was a week or days, we would do it again. And a series of 3 different times we went up for these berm buster operations, and each time we pushed a little bit further north into the Iraqi defenses, made contact, and I remember that we were the engineer company, so we were kind of out in front of the brigade formation, working real closely with 1-5 Cav. They were the 2nd Brigade was organized with 1 infantry battalion, which was 1-5, and then 2 tank battalions. Probably the overwhelming firepower of our Air Force and combat ground power of our tanks and Bradleys did the trick there, but we were able to reestablish those defenses fairly easily, and fortunately, the predictions of hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths did not come true, and we were able to. My unit, Bravo Company 8th Engineers, we lost no one.
America's military veterans. They wrote part of our country's history.